Right now, something in your fridge could be quietly feeding cancer cells. Sugar spikes insulin. Insulin drives up a hormone called IGF-1. And IGF-1 has been linked to switching on growth pathways that cancer cells thrive on. Toxic to your metabolism, toxic to your cells. Sorry, that's just the biology of it. But here's the flip side. Sitting in that same grocery store are foods that do the opposite. Foods that help your body defend itself, cell by cell, meal by meal. Today, we're breaking down exactly which foods may be quietly fueling cancer growth and which ones can help your body fight back naturally. I'll walk you through why it matters, what the science actually says, and what you can do about it starting tonight. Ready? Let's get into it. Cancer isn't caused by one bad meal. Nobody gets sick from a single burger or one glass of wine. What actually drives risk is pattern, the thousands of small choices repeated over years, quietly shaping your internal environment. Your body is built with natural defense systems, angiogenesis regulation, DNA repair enzymes, a functioning immune system, a balanced gut microbiome. These are your biological security team. Certain foods weaken that team, others strengthen it. Knowing the difference is one of the most practical health decisions you can make. Doctors and researchers have spent decades mapping which everyday ingredients tip the scale in one direction or the other. None of this is about fear. It's about information, the kind that lets you walk through a grocery store with a clearer sense of what you're actually buying. So let's break this down in two parts. First, the foods that may work against you. Second, the foods that can help your body fight back. Stick around for both, because the second half is where the real leverage is. Body Section 1, foods that may fuel cancer growth. Sugar and refined carbohydrates top this list, and for good reason. White bread, white rice, pastries, sugary drinks, these spike your blood glucose fast. That spike triggers insulin. Chronically elevated insulin raises IGF-1, a growth hormone that doesn't discriminate between healthy cells and abnormal ones. Cancer cells are notoriously glucose hungry. Some researchers have even explored whether that hunger can be used diagnostically, since rapidly growing tumors often show up brightly on PET scans that track glucose uptake. That's not a coincidence. It's biology working exactly the way you'd expect. Processed meats come next, and I know this one stings. Bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats, they're crowd pleasers at every barbecue and holiday table. Still, the World Health Organization has classified processed meats as a Class 1 carcinogen. Not possibly, not linked to, classified. Multiple large studies tie regular consumption to a measurably higher risk of colorectal cancer, largely due to compounds like nitrites and heme iron that can damage the gut lining over time. Red meat consumed frequently, even unprocessed, sits in a related but slightly lower risk category, worth moderating, not necessarily eliminating. Fried and charred foods deserve a mention too. Deep frying, grilling meat until it's blackened, roasting at very high heat, all of these create acrylamides and heterocyclic amines. These compounds form through the Maillard reaction, the same chemical process responsible for that irresistible golden brown color and smoky flavor. Delicious, yes, but laboratory studies have shown these byproducts can damage DNA, and repeated exposure adds up. French fries, potato chips, and even toast, brown too dark, all contain measurable acrylamide levels. Alcohol is another quiet contributor. Even moderate drinking has been associated with increased risk for several cancers, including breast and liver cancer. Here's why. Your body converts alcohol into acetaldehyde, a compound capable of directly damaging DNA. One drink at a celebration isn't the concern. Daily habitual drinking is where the risk compounds, and that risk climbs with every additional drink per week. Ultra-processed foods round out this section, packaged snacks loaded with seed oils, emulsifiers, and synthetic preservatives. Emerging research suggests these additives can disrupt the gut microbiome, and a disrupted microbiome is closely tied to chronic low-grade inflammation. That kind of inflammation doesn't announce itself with symptoms. It just sits there, quietly, creating conditions that make disease more likely to take hold. Read an ingredient label with more than 10 unpronounceable items, and there's a good chance you're looking at exactly this category. Trans fats deserve their own call-out, even though they've largely been phased out of packaged foods in many countries. Partially hydrogenated oils, still lingering in some fried fast food and certain baked goods, are strongly associated with systemic inflammation and cardiovascular harm, and inflammation is one of the shared pathways that can make cellular environments more permissive to abnormal growth. Notice something across all 7 of these categories? Each one either spikes inflammation, damages DNA, feeds abnormal cell growth, or disrupts your gut's protective bacteria. That's the common thread running underneath every item on this list. It's not about any single bad food in isolation. It's about which biological pathway keeps getting triggered, meal after meal, year after year. Section 2. Foods that may help your body fight back. Now let's talk about what actually helps. Your plate isn't only a source of risk, it can be one of your strongest tools. And this next section is where you get to build your shopping list. Cruciferous vegetables lead this category. Broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and especially broccoli sprouts contain a compound called sulforaphane, which has been studied extensively for its role in supporting the body's natural detoxification enzymes. Here's a pro tip that most people miss. Chopping or chewing broccoli activates the enzyme responsible for producing sulforaphane. Overcook it into mush, and you lose much of that benefit. Lightly steaming for just a few minutes preserves both the nutrients and the enzyme activity. Berries bring a completely different set of benefits. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries are rich in anthocyanins and polyphenols, plant compounds studied for their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Don't assume fresh is always better here. Frozen berries are typically picked and flash frozen at peak ripeness, which often preserves nutrients just as well, sometimes better, than berries that travel days to reach your grocery shelf. Fatty fish deserves its reputation. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, and anchovies are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which help counterbalance the excess omega-6 fats most people overconsume through processed foods and vegetable oils. That balance matters because omega-6 dominance is associated with a more inflammatory internal state, while omega-3s tend to push things in the opposite direction. Twice a week is a reasonable target for most people looking to shift that ratio. Turmeric is one of the most well-researched spices in this entire conversation. Its active compound, curcumin, has been studied for anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties across hundreds of published papers. Here's the catch. Curcumin is poorly absorbed on its own. Pair it with black pepper, though, and the piperine inside black pepper can dramatically boost absorption. Some studies suggest by over 1,000%. A pinch of pepper in your turmeric tea or curry isn't just flavor, it's functional. Green tea contains a polyphenol called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, which has been researched for potential anti-cancer properties across multiple cell studies. The same rule that applies to coffee applies here. Skip the sugar, skip the heavy cream. Dairy fat can interfere with how efficiently your body absorbs these beneficial polyphenols, so a splash of almond or oat milk keeps the benefits intact if you need something in it at all. Garlic and onions bring sulfur-based compounds associated with supporting healthy cell function and immune activity. Crush your garlic and let it rest for about 10 minutes before cooking. That short waiting period activates an enzyme called oleanase, which produces allicin, the compound responsible for most of garlic's research benefits. Toss it straight into a hot pan without waiting, and you lose a meaningful chunk of that potential. Legumes deserve serious attention too. Lentils, chickpeas, black beans, and kidney beans are loaded with fiber, and fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria living in your gut. A well-fed, diverse gut microbiome has been linked to lower systemic inflammation and stronger immune regulation, which loops directly back to those biological defense systems mentioned earlier. Populations with the highest legume consumption tend to show some of the lowest rates of colorectal cancer worldwide. Mushrooms are often overlooked, but they shouldn't be. Shiitake, maitake, and button mushrooms all contain beta-glucans, compounds studied for their ability to support immune cell activity. Cooking mushrooms lightly, rather than eating them raw, actually improves the availability of these beneficial compounds, so a quick sauté is your best move here. Citrus fruits bring vitamin C along with a family of compounds called flavonoids. Oranges, grapefruit, lemons, all studied for antioxidant support and their role in helping the body neutralize free radicals before they cause cellular damage. Keep some of the pith and inner peel when possible. That's where a large share of the flavonoid content actually concentrates. Extra virgin olive oil earns a place on this list as well. Rich in monounsaturated fats and a polyphenol called oleocanthal, olive oil has been studied for anti-inflammatory effects that some researchers describe as functioning similarly, in small ways, to ibuprofen. Use it as your primary cooking fat and finishing oil, and you're getting a steady, low-dose benefit with every meal. Nuts and seeds round out this list nicely. Walnuts, almonds, flax seeds, and chia seeds all bring fiber, healthy fats, and plant compounds called lignans, which have been studied for hormone-regulating properties. A small daily handful is enough to matter. This isn't a food category where more is automatically better. Section 3, practical, everyday habits that matter just as much. Diet is only part of the picture. A few daily habits carry equal weight, and they're worth building into your routine right alongside what's on your plate. Portion awareness matters more than most people realize. Eating until satisfied, not stuffed, keeps insulin and inflammatory signaling in check. Chronic overeating drives excess body fat, and body fat isn't just passive storage, it actively produces inflammatory signaling molecules that circulate throughout your entire system. Leaving a small amount of food on your plate, more often than not, is a habit worth building. Sleep quietly influences almost everything else on this list. Poor sleep disrupts the hormones that regulate appetite, inflammation, and cellular repair. Your body does much of its DNA repair work overnight while you're resting. Skimp on sleep consistently, and you're skimping on that repair window night after night. Hydration deserves a mention too, even though it rarely gets the spotlight. Proper hydration supports kidney function and helps your body clear metabolic waste products efficiently. Chronic mild dehydration, sustained over years, has been associated with a range of downstream metabolic effects that compound quietly over time. Stress management belongs on this list as well. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, and sustained high cortisol has been linked to immune suppression and increased inflammation. This doesn't mean you need to eliminate stress entirely. That's not realistic for anyone. It means building in genuine recovery time, whether that's exercise, sleep, time outdoors, or simply unstructured downtime away from screens. And finally, don't fear individual foods, fear the pattern. One dessert, one drink, one fried meal at a celebration isn't going to define your health trajectory. It's the daily, repeated pattern, stacked over months and years, that actually shifts risk in one direction or the other. That's the entire philosophy behind everything covered in this video. Section 4. Quick myth busting before you go organic. Food eliminates cancer risk entirely. Choosing organic can reduce exposure to certain pesticide residues, and that's a reasonable preference if it fits your budget. But it isn't a magic shield. The bigger drivers discussed in this video, processed meat, alcohol, ultra-processed snacking, chronic inflammation, matter far more than the organic versus conventional label on your produce. Superfoods alone can reverse risk. No single ingredient, no matter how many polyphenols it contains, outweighs an otherwise poor dietary pattern. Turmeric doesn't cancel out a diet built around fried food and sugary drinks. Think of these protective foods as one layer of a much larger, cumulative strategy, not a shortcut around everything else. Natural sugar in fruit is just as bad as added sugar. Also not accurate. Whole fruit comes packaged with fiber, water, and micronutrients that slow sugar absorption and blunt the insulin spike compared to a can of soda or a candy bar. Whole fruit stays firmly in the helpful column discussed earlier. Section 5. Smart substitutions. You can start tonight. Knowing the science is one thing. Actually changing your grocery cart is another. So here are simple, realistic swaps you can make starting with your very next meal. Swap white bread and white rice for whole grain versions, or better yet, quinoa or farro. The fiber content alone slows down that glucose spike discussed earlier, which means less strain on your insulin response with every meal. Swap deli meat sandwiches for grilled or roasted chicken, canned salmon, or a hearty lentil salad a few days a week. You don't need to eliminate deli meat entirely, just don't let it become your default lunch 5 days running. Swap your frying oil. Instead of reaching for heavily refined vegetable oils, cook with extra virgin olive oil or avocado oil for medium heat cooking. Both hold up reasonably well and bring beneficial compounds along for the ride instead of just empty calories. Swap your afternoon soda or energy drink for green tea or sparkling water with a splash of citrus. This single swap alone can meaningfully cut your daily added sugar intake without requiring any willpower beyond the first few weeks of habit building. Swap your late-night packaged snack for a small handful of walnuts or a piece of dark chocolate above 70% cacao. You still get satisfaction and flavor, just with fewer of the additives that tend to come packed into ultra-processed snack foods. None of these swaps require a complete lifestyle overhaul. Pick 2 or 3 that feel realistic for your week, build them into a habit, and then add another once they feel automatic. That's how sustainable change actually happens, not through a single dramatic reset, but through small substitutions that stack up over months. Section 6. How your body actually fights back. Let's zoom out for a moment, because understanding the mechanism behind all of this makes the advice stick a lot better than just memorizing a food list. Your body isn't passive. Every single day, it deals with thousands of DNA errors, abnormal cell replications, and potential threats, and in a healthy, well-supported system, it neutralizes almost all of them before they ever become a problem. 4 systems do most of that heavy lifting. Angiogenesis regulation is the first. Angiogenesis is simply the process of new blood vessels forming. Tumors need a blood supply to grow beyond a microscopic size, so your body has natural angiogenesis inhibitors that can keep abnormal growths starved of the blood vessels they'd need to expand. Certain foods, including some of the ones covered in Section 2, have been studied for supporting this exact regulatory pathway. DNA repair is the second system, and it's running constantly in nearly every cell, every moment of your life. Specialized enzymes scan for errors and fix them before a damaged cell can replicate and pass that damage forward. Chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and poor sleep all interfere with how efficiently this repair machinery operates. Immune surveillance is the third. Your immune system doesn't just fight colds and flu. Certain immune cells, natural killer cells among them, are specifically tasked with identifying and eliminating abnormal cells before they can establish themselves. A well-functioning gut microbiome plays a surprisingly large role in keeping this surveillance system sharp, which is exactly why fiber and fermented foods keep showing up throughout this conversation. Microbiome balance rounds out the list as the 4th pillar, and honestly, it might be the most underappreciated one. Trillions of bacteria live in your gut, and their collective activity influences inflammation, immune signaling, and even hormone metabolism throughout your entire body. A diverse, well-fed microbiome supports every other system on this list. A disrupted one undermines all 4 at once. Here's why this matters practically. Every food category discussed earlier in this video maps directly onto one or more of these 4 systems. Processed meats and alcohol interfere with DNA repair and microbiome balance. Ultra-processed snacks disrupt the gut and fuel chronic inflammation, which suppresses immune surveillance. On the other side, cruciferous vegetables and fiber-rich legumes actively feed a healthy microbiome. Turmeric and green tea support the anti-inflammatory environment your DNA repair enzymes need to function properly. This isn't random advice pulled from wherever. It's the same handful of biological levers, discussed from different angles throughout the entire video. Researchers sometimes describe this concept using the term food as medicine. And while that phrase gets used loosely across the internet, the underlying science behind it is genuinely solid. Bioactive compounds in whole foods don't work like a pharmaceutical drug targeting one single pathway. Instead, they tend to work on multiple systems simultaneously, at lower intensity, over a much longer time frame. That's precisely why consistency matters so much more here than intensity. A single dose of sulforaphane from one broccoli meal won't do much on its own. Years of regularly eating cruciferous vegetables, alongside the other habits in this video, meaningfully shifts your baseline risk profile over time. Section 7, a sample day, put together theory is useful, but let's make this concrete. Here's what a realistic day built around everything covered so far might actually look like on your plate. Start the morning with a bowl of oats, topped with a handful of blueberries and a few crushed walnuts. That's fiber, anthocyanins, and healthy fats before you've even left the kitchen. If coffee is part of your morning, keep it black or use a splash of almond milk instead of cream to protect that chlorogenic acid absorption discussed earlier. For lunch, build a bowl around a base of leafy greens, a scoop of chickpeas or lentils, roasted broccoli, and a simple olive oil and lemon dressing. Add grilled chicken or canned salmon if you want more protein. This single meal touches cruciferous vegetables, legumes, healthy fats, and lean protein all at once. Mid-afternoon, reach for a piece of fruit and a small square of dark chocolate if you want something sweet, rather than a packaged snack bar loaded with the additives discussed in Section 1. Pair it with a cup of green tea if you tend to hit an energy slump around this time. For dinner, build around a fatty fish like salmon or mackerel, a generous side of roasted or steamed vegetables, and a small portion of a whole grain like quinoa or farro. Season generously with turmeric, black pepper, and garlic that's had its 10 minutes to rest before hitting the pan. So here's the real takeaway. Cancer risk isn't decided by one meal. It's shaped by the pattern you build day after day, choice after choice, plate after plate. Cut back where it counts. Less processed meat, less added sugar, less alcohol, less deep-fried and charred food, less ultra-processed packaging. Lean into what actually helps. Cruciferous vegetables, colorful berries, fatty fish, turmeric paired with black pepper, green tea without the sugar, garlic given time to activate, fiber-rich legumes, mushrooms, citrus, olive oil, and a small daily handful of nuts and seeds. Take notes from this video. Build your next grocery list around it. Small, repeated choices are what actually move the needle over time. Not perfection, not restriction, just consistency. Long question comes up more than any other after videos like this. Where do I even start? Don't try to overhaul your entire kitchen tonight. Pick one section from this video, maybe Section 5 swaps, maybe the sample day from Section 7, and apply just that one piece for the next 2 weeks. Once it feels automatic, layer in the next piece. Sustainable change is built in layers, not in a single overwhelming leap. Another common question, does this replace medical care or screening? No, and it never should. Everything in this video is about supporting your body's baseline defenses through everyday choices. Regular checkups, recommended screenings, and any guidance from your own doctor take priority over anything discussed here. Think of this information as a complement to good medical care, not a substitute for it. And if anything covered today raises a specific concern about your own health history, that's a conversation worth having with your physician directly, not something to self-diagnose from a video. If you only remember one thing from the next 24 hours, let it be this. Your body rebuilds itself constantly, cell by cell, meal by meal. Every plate you sit down to is either handing your defense systems a little more ammunition or asking them to work a little harder against you. Neither outcome happens all at once. Both happen gradually, quietly, meal after meal, which is exactly why the daily pattern matters so much more than any single indulgence ever could. That's it for today. Now you know which foods may quietly work against you and which ones can help your body defend itself, starting with your very next meal. If this video was practical and eye-opening, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive into food as medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your health, don't stop here. My next video takes this even further. See you there.